I'm officially down about 10 kilos. This is how the physique is looking though. Midway through the shred. We're getting pretty sharp, but there's more work to be done. Not peak condition yet. And this is the part where a lot of people start to struggle because it starts to take a bit more digging. You gotta be careful or you're gonna get skinny. You're gonna lose muscle. You're gonna start feeling a bit dodgy and your workouts start going down the toilet. So I'm gonna run you through 5 reasons why, although I'm getting shredded now, there's a lot more to be done. These are the 5 reasons why I'm gonna get there. This video, I'm gonna run you down what I'm doing and what you should be doing the same to get next level peeled. So first step, obviously, is making sure you're in a proper calorie deficit. And this is not making sure you're absolutely starving yourself. Because if you are, that's where in these phases you start losing muscle and just feeling skinny and stringy. You want to hold on to all your hard gained muscle. I know the fears. I've been through those stages in the past where I've run deficit phases. I've been too scared of losing muscle and then not pushed it hard enough. And I've also done the opposite where I've pushed it too hard and lost muscle. So we need to make sure we're having just that right amount of deficit below maintenance. So I'm on 3,100 calories. So that's my daily intake. It's not super low, but for someone of my body weight, it's enough to be dropping fat at a reasonable pace. And for that reason, although it's not super low, I do get pretty hungry, but that's why we want to make sure we're using the right foods that are a bit more voluminous, not super calorie rich. That way you can have a bit more volume in your food. So my first meal of the day, every day at the moment, is Greek yogurt, which we're weighing out right here. I mix that in with, at the moment, almond protein powder, which is just tastes absolutely awesome. I mix that in with frozen strawberries, and that comes down to a pretty low calorie but protein dense breakfast, meaning I've got still plenty of calories to go throughout the day. Keeps me full enough for the morning, and it tastes pretty awesome. The finished product of breakfast, meal number 1. The question you're probably asking is, how do I actually know how to find this perfect balance of deficit? And the answer is, a lot of it is just tracking data and just sort of trial and erroring how your body responds to certain degrees of calorie intake. For beginners, when you're starting out, you can simply just jump online and go to like a calorie calculator, put in your body stats, your height, weight, age, activity levels. It'll give you like a rough estimate. Sometimes that's a good starting point as just a baseline, but it's not going to be super accurate. Good point to start though. Then what you do from there, say if we want to find what your maintenance calories are. Calculate your maintenance calories, eat at maintenance for about 2 weeks, and track your body weight trends every single day. If your weight holds the same, you're hitting maintenance calories. If your weight goes up or down, you're either in a surplus or a deficit. Once we've established a maintenance though, the starting point in simple terms in the early days is simply just to reduce your calories by approximately 20 to 30%. It doesn't need to be super aggressive to get away with it. If you want to lose weight a bit faster, I guess you have a bit more to lose. You can get it more aggressive and push it down 30% or more, but taking that controlled reduction is a starting point. Track your weight every day, assess visuals, make sure that things are moving at a good pace. Then you know that you are in a good deficit if you pull it down from there. For me, my maintenance calories are probably somewhere closer to about 4,000. So me being at 3,300 is just that right amount at the moment for things to move forward. The only thing to be careful about though, the longer you're in a deficit, the more time is spent for your body to be adapting. So it'll adapt in time, which means if I pulled my calories down to 3,300, after a few weeks, my body would probably get used to that. That would be almost my new maintenance, meaning I got to pull it further. And that's where we get into your next step. Step number 2, pun definitely intended, is prioritizing your steps. It might sound like a stupidly simple thing, but it's such an effortless way to burn off extra calories. Say, for example, if you're hitting 10,000 steps a day, that can be burning up to say 500 calories. And that's about a medium-sized meal. So would you prefer to be just doing a bit more walking and being able to eat more? Or would you prefer to move less and then have to be hungrier? I know what I'd choose. The reason why it's important in the back end of a deficit though is fatigue management becomes very important. If you're not managing fatigue, that's where performance down-regulates, and that's when you run the risk of dropping muscle at the expense of getting shredded. So we want to make sure that if we're trying to burn calories off effectively without just burning the body into the ground, the less effort and the less stress you can put on yourself, the better it's going to lead to progress at the end of the day. So what I actually do for myself, I sit behind a laptop most of the day doing programs and client work. So my actual natural step count is not massive. I have a 8,000 step target that I hit each day. And the 8,000 steps is enough for me to sustain a good deficit and make sure that I'm still progressing well. And it's doable within my busy days of doing work behind the laptop screen. So 8,000 steps a day. What that does is that just really burns off extra calories. You can either do it this way, which puts less stress on the body, allows you to have more available energy for your training sessions in themselves and for muscle maintenance, muscle recovery and performance, or you can run more cardio and sort of get to a point where you're fatiguing the body more than necessary. Cardio is obviously beneficial, but if we can sort of pick the lowest hanging fruit first and do the easy stuff, which is your steps, it's going to set yourself up with so much more room to sort of dig once you need to sort of fast track fat loss deeper into it. So focus on your steps first and foremost. I recommend at least a 10,000 step count, unless you're someone like myself who burns body fat very easily. 8,000 steps a day is enough. Paired with my light cardio sessions, it's a perfect balance. I just legit track my steps on my Whoop, which is a little tracker. You can use like a Fitbit, a tracker. You can use your phone if you have it on you throughout the day. As long as you're tracking your steps and tracking your movement, it doesn't take any extra effort, really. It's so easy, but it burns off a good amount of, almost think of it like a meal's worth of calories. So you're digging yourself into a deeper deficit without really any extra stress. And bonus of just forcefully getting more steps is it forces you to get outside and soak up some sunshine. Like for me, it gives me a bit of extra reason to get out of the house between work, head across the road to the beach and get some steps in by the ocean. So can't complain. And I think as well, like when you are feeling a little bit more tired and fatigued that does come to an extent in a deficit phase, getting out and getting for a walk always, for me at least, gives me a bit of a boost of energy. Increases blood flow, aids in digestion, aids in blood glucose management and stability, and just sort of good for the head really as well. So good way to keep yourself feeling a bit more fresh in a deficit. And when it's a beautiful day like today, it's just an absolute win-win. Step number 3 is don't unnecessarily change the way you train in the back end of a deficit. If you want to maintain muscle, you need to be maintaining performance. So what you did to build muscle is what is going to keep it. A lot of guys sort of come into a deficit phase. They'll think they need to bump their reps higher, bump their sets higher, and do more higher volume training. At the end of the day, you actually should be doing a little bit less, if anything. What I do in the back end of a deficit is I actually reduce my working sets and reduce any added intensifiers or set methods that are added to training. That way, fatigue is lower, my performance is heightened, and I can sustain my strength throughout a workout. You should not be declining in strength if you're doing things properly in a deficit. If you are, that's where you risk losing muscle. So to avoid losing strength, sometimes you just need to be doing a little bit less to maintain the quality of what you're doing. If you're doing more sets, more reps, more added intensifiers, that second half of your workout, you're probably not going to be able to maintain strength because your muscular endurance can start to decline. Your strength though should not decline if you want to maintain muscle. So what I do is I'll reduce sets a little bit compared to what it was at the top of a growth phase because my actual carbohydrate intake and my energy availability is lower. That way, I'm just performing better. Fatigue's going to be managed better as well. And what you're doing is better. Quality over quantity always. And that's like the grand scheme of the whole idea of maintaining muscle in the back end of getting next level shredded. Better quality beats more quantity. For example, at the back end of a growth phase, my working sets and my volume is normally higher. Normally I'll start off by reducing my working sets down to 2 to 3 working sets on bigger lifts, whereas sometimes it's 3 to 4 in the back end of a growth phase. And simply speaking, my performance maintains. I've done deficit phases in the past where I've done high sets, high reps, and second half of the workout, or even like my last 1 or 2 sets of the exercises at the start, my performance strength will just decline. And it's not the fact you're getting weaker, it's just because you have less energy available, less carbohydrate intake, and your muscular endurance is going to take a bit of a hit. Be smart with it. Don't change your training necessarily much at all. Until you get to the back end, that's when it's time to just be smart with things. Still train hard, just don't always have to focus on quite as much volume. Step 4, use your cardio smartly. I've just jumped off the spin bike, doing my 25 minutes of cardio. At the moment, I'm doing 25 minutes of low intensity, steady state cardio on the spin bike. I do it 4 days a week. Normally I'm doing it post-workout. Sometimes I do it just first thing in the morning, just whenever I feel like it, to be honest. The main question a lot of guys ask here is, do you need to be doing it fasted? Be doing it before training? Do you be doing it in the afternoon, post-workout? At the end of the day, it doesn't make a massive difference unless you're using a high degree of fat burners. Sometimes doing it in a fasted state can be slightly more beneficial, but at the end of the day, as long as you're doing it, that's number one. I prefer to do it post-workout. Reason being is because your heart rate after a workout is already elevated. To get your heart rate to the desired fat burning range, it requires less stress to be put on the legs and on the body as a whole to get your heart rate up, but still has the same effect. So you're still going to be burning off just as many calories. So I just hit my cardio 25 minutes post-workout, and on the spin bike, I don't have to push the resistance on the speed super high just to get my heart rate up, but it's already slightly up after training. Therefore, less fatigue, more available energy for recovery and performance into your next session. Normally, I'd recommend not doing this straight before your workout because if you're burning off more energy you have when you go into your workout, which is what's most important, you're going to have less fuel available for the actual weight training, which is what's going to stimulate muscle growth or muscle retention and hypertrophy. So 25 minutes for me, 4 days a week is plenty. It depends on what your outfit's like. If you're someone who's very active every day, you might not even need cardio. If you're someone who is not active at all, you might need to do more than what I'm doing. So there's different degrees of what you want to do, and you can almost pick and choose. Sometimes some guys prefer to do more steps, less cardio. Some guys will prefer to do less steps, more cardio. Some guys will be excessively hungry. So sometimes doing more cardio can mean more
calories burned and a room for more calories. So it really depends on what you want to do. The most important thing, again, in the back end of a deficit, if you want to maintain your muscle and get super shredded, is to not be overdoing it. I've had preps in the past where I was doing like 45-minute stair climbing sessions 2 times a day. Well, I think it was 45 minutes in the morning and then 30 minutes at night on the stair climber. And what I noticed is my legs really flattened out. They weren't recovering from leg days. They were just starting to look a lot flatter. And my performance in the gym, probably as a result of the excessive cardio, was not where it should have been. So my legs probably shrunk a bit, to be honest. You want to be smart. Enough cardio to burn body fat, not too much to the point that you're not performing, you're not maintaining muscle. It's an important thing to find that balance. And then also comes the question, what about HIIT training? What about interval training? High intensity work. There's a time and place for it, but again, back end of a deficit in a bodybuilding setting, not so much. I've said a million times, when you want to maintain muscle, you want to maintain the ability to recover and perform, prioritizing your weight training. So high intensity interval training can just sort of cause more fatigue than necessary. If anything, I would normally recommend interval training to be done more so in a growth phase, because you got more energy available, you're going to be able to recover better. You got so much food in the system, you got plenty to burn, and it's not done so much for fat burning because it's in a growth phase. It's done more so just for general cardiovascular health. So in a deficit phase, low intensity, steady state doesn't need to be super easy, or you'll be on the treadmill or the chosen mode of cardio for ages to just burn off enough calories, but we don't need it to be excessive. I strive for 120 to 130 beats per minute heart rate. That's enough to be working out a bit of a sweat, be breathing a bit more heavily without putting too much stress in the body. And that for me is the sweet spot.
Now, this is a bonus step. Get yourself a Ninja Creamy. Essentially, all this is a glorified protein shake. Frozen skim milk with 55 grams of protein, and I've got some blueberries on top. Like, that's so simple. You can add that as a little liquid shake that's down the hatch in a second, or you can chuck it in the Ninja Creamy, and it ends up being a big, dense thing, almost the size of my head. Keep your food voluminous. It doesn't have to be excessively voluminous or ridiculous to the point where it makes you feel bloated, but using foods that's lower calorie and higher in just serving just makes the deficit so much more enjoyable. And really, the more you enjoy yourself, the more you have fun, the more energy you're going to put into your deficit, almost a bit of a placebo effect. If you feel good, you're going to do good. You're going to get shredded good. That was pretty bad English, but you get the point. And step number 5 is get your sleep sorted. Have you ever had one of those weeks where you feel like you're pushing hard, you're in a calorie deficit, but your weight's just not moving on the scales? Chances are you're still burning body fat, but your scale weight's not moving because stress and cortisol is higher, because your sleep and your stress hasn't been managed. I have a list of rules that I stick to set myself up for better sleep. Number 1, I turn my computer, my laptop off and work off by 6 p.m. so that my mind is destimulated, ready for sleep. On a weeknight, I'll always be in bed by about 8 p.m. and I'll normally do some reading in bed to get myself into like a chill state, so I'm physically and mentally just relaxed and ready for sleep. Control your caffeine intake, especially from about 3 p.m. onwards if you are going to bed around that 8 to 9 o'clock mark. That way it's mostly out of your system and you're able to sort of be destimulated, ready for a good sleep. If you go to bed the same time every night, you wake up the same time every morning, you're generally going to get that natural circadian rhythm in a good spot where your body knows to sleep at this time. It doesn't have to sort of and ah as to what it should be doing. It knows, all right, it's 8:30 p.m. I need to sleep. And it's so much easier to get into a restful state and get better sleep. When you're not sleeping, you're not growing. Same thing in a deficit phase. If you're not sleeping, you're not recovering. And that's where you risk losing muscle, downgrading your performance, and getting skinny when we want to be as huge and jacked as possible while getting shredded. Don't sleep on your sleep. That's my 5 main steps for getting next level shredded, losing weight on the scales. Anyone can do that with a little bit of a calorie deficit, but if we want to get next level, absolutely shredded without wasting away and looking skinny, you need to have these things dialed in. I've learned the hard way. As you saw before, I've pushed deficit phases where I've gone too hard and gotten skinny. I've taken deficit phases where I haven't pushed hard enough and just wasted my time. We need to have things dialed in, and we need to make sure all these little variables are corrected. If they are, and you've got that done consistently on a day-to-day basis, all that's going to happen is you're going to get shredded. And that is pretty much what, I don't know about you, but that's one of the main goals that I have right now, getting shredded. And if you want to learn more on how to get next level with your physique, whether it's getting next level shredded, next level jacked, whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments what you want to see, because I've done it before. I've built somewhat of a extremely abnormal physique, I would say. So if you want to do the same, I'm here to share the knowledge. What do you want to know? What do you want to learn? I'll show you what I do for my clients, and how to get absolutely huge and jacked and shredded and BIGG, big with 2 G's.